Fantasy Football edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content, and contests, including our NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app to get last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. Use promo code SGPN for $20 off. We're also brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code SGP. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Emerson Beery. Happy to be joined by my co-host, Justin Bruni. How are you doing this fine Sunday, my friend?
Doing well. Getting ready to kick off my week here. Wrapping up this one. Feeling good. We're got our last leg of preseason football here. This the Saints and Houston Texans game. Was enjoying that a little bit. Saw Jimmy Graham scored a touchdown. Some fun stuff. Didn't quite dunk on the field goal post, but, Jimmy Graham touchdown. Don't see that every day. Did I lose you already?
Oh, my goodness. We were having this problem before the show. Everybody, I swear, if Justin has to take this show today by himself, it's my internet. I already did a hard reset a couple times today. So I'll be here, hopefully toughing it out with you, Jay. Otherwise, bring Jamie on. He's already in the chat here. Jamie, you might need to step up to the plate, my friend. But I'm going to be trying to fight through some apparent internet troubles. I've tried to do a couple resets here. We will see how this goes. We are going to be trying to do some zero running back draft strategies if we can get out the words here. So with that, considering my internet, I guess, is a little volatile, we will dive right into the show sheet today. One interesting topic I wanted to dive into first is the fact how contentious zero running back, what constitutes zero running back? When does it actually become a zero running back draft? At how long can you wait on running back? So what's your line? Can you select a running back in the third or fourth round and still call it zero running back, or do you have to push it farther than that?
No, because then that makes your strategy a hero RB. Who's going to be your hero RB up front? Be your like your Derrick Henry, or maybe you go with like an Austin Eckler in the first round, and then just go through a wave of receivers before you bring back the running back position. I think going 5 or 6 rounds, I think that you can actually say like, hey, I went zero RB. I think the traditionalists really prefer like 8 rounds, and I think that's probably a bit excessive. At some point, probably round 5 or round 6, I want to be sniffing out a running back that I really like. Now, this is definitely a popular strategy in best ball, but I believe that popularity has kind of transitioned over to the redraft style of platforms, because when I look at ADP, when I'm in these redraft lobbies for just, basic redraft, 2023 boards, I see a better evaluation of receivers overall. Like the ADP is in favor of, going receiver early. So that's why you're able to find so many, running back nuggets, some nice sleepers and breakout candidates in like that RB 25 to 35 range this year, just because the ADP is just predicating it.
Wide receivers are certainly jammed up, but do you think there could be a difference? Because we're always drafting on underdogs so much. That's where we're getting our. Do you think there could be a little bit of a difference in it for people maybe sitting at home in their home leagues? Do you think running backs go generally a little bit higher there?
No, I've done some home league drafts on different platforms like Sleeper and ESPN and Yahoo, and it's very similar. You know, you still see Deontay Johnson of immense value. You still see a lot of the running backs that we'll kind of discuss later on this show. Guys like David Montgomery, guys like James Cook, Jeff Wilson. Still, just so many value running backs available because the position just isn't over prioritized like it used to be. I see a very big flop from ADP from running back to receiver from, say, just 5 years ago. So receivers just on your board in general, unless you're drafting from like alphabetical order, which if we can normalize that and make that a real thing in fantasy football, that would be excellent. But just about everybody's going to be using very similar ADP, whether it's coming from Fantasy Pros, like I said, Yahoo, Sleeper, ESPN, wherever. It's still heavily in favor of the wide receiver position right now. Why you're seeing so many more receivers go in the first round. Now, obviously, if you switch over to like a standardized format, if you're going standard, 0 PPR or even half point PPR, yeah, you'll see that adjustment. You'll see clear, moves up the board for running backs versus receivers. That's going to be something that's real. But again, not really the popular format right now, right? I think a lot of people have leaned into at least full point PPR, if not half point PPR at best.
That's an interesting point, is the full PPR versus half PPR. I still generally think that, especially if you are in a half PPR league, maybe like an underdog, the running backs do maybe hold a little bit more cachet there. But like you said, when you could consider the opportunity cost, when you can get a David Montgomery, or I won't spoil too many names, or you can get a running back deeper on in drafts at a value, and considering how the wide receiver pool generally dries up very quickly. I usually don't like to let how other drafters dictate my draft. I like to zig while others are zagging, but it's such a wave, such a prevalent force that yes, it does drive you to take those wide receivers early, knowing especially if you're in an underdog draft, right when you hit, I think that wide receiver 38, 39, feels like that kind of hard line right there, where after that you're dealing with more long shots where you can still get very good running backs in that territory. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about why is this an effective draft strategy, more so than just the fact that the running backs are going a little bit later on, like I said.
Because at the end of the day, the easiest way to win your fantasy football draft is to play the ADP game. So getting guys either after ADP or moving up your guys. There's never really a fault in moving someone up ahead of ADP as long as you're backing it under good reason. Someone like me would be like DK Metcalf or Deontay Johnson. Those are guys that I really like. James Cook is becoming more of that guy. David Montgomery is becoming more of that guy for me. If I do go, let's say, wide receiver heavy, but the running back list is starting to, get a little bit thin, and I see one of those guys that I may need to move up, 10 spots ahead of ADP, I have no problem doing it because they're one of my guys. I just, again, feel that the draft boards in general are favoriting wide receivers early. So being able to go ahead and get that value at its actual cost still allows you to get safe value from the running back position when it's due up, when it's coming up in your draft, when it's more popular in, say, the end of the second round. Definitely favorable in like the fourth or fifth round. You see a lot of running backs being drafted, in that window. Whereas in the first couple of rounds, you're seeing a lot of receivers. You see the first bleed of quarterbacks and then elite running backs as well. And, mixing in, some of the tight ends, Kelsey, Andrews, probably Hawkinson as well by about round 4. So you're still seeing that the running backs are just undervalued in that window. And as you get to rounds 4, 5, 6, 7 plus, they're being valued more safely at ADP. So when you're setting yourself up like this, just say you go 3 wide receivers, you go receiver, 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 you're still setting yourself up for very good value at the running back position because other people have been playing the game as well with you. Whether they're leaning into what you're doing, attacking receiver heavy, and they're leaving more value for you at running back, or they're mixing it up and going more running back heavy, leaving more room for you to go receiver again in rounds 4 and 5 and have really good value backed up by running backs in rounds 6 through 10. they're there. There's tons of value all the way to the 10th, 11th, 12th round with the running back position.
Yeah, and I like stretching it deep. Like our Jamie. It's hard to find a stream that Jamie cannot mention Roschon Johnson into. Jamie talking about, I had the first pick in a draft today and didn't take a running back until round 5. Ended up with Sanders, Rachaad White, Antonio Gibson, Shamai P. Ryan, Kenny Gainwell, and Roschon Johnson in all caps, of course. That's our friend.
Love it.
For Jamie, what's your ear in Chicago telling you about Roschon Johnson? How's that running back depth chart looking?
Apparently, Foreman left yesterday with an injury.
Okay. All right. Well,
so that'll help.
I've already heard the whisperings over at Player Profiler, or maybe this will be too deep for them to find, but they haven't posted it yet. Is that he's going to take that RB2 job from Deontay Foreman. Roschon Johnson looks to be taking that sooner rather than later. Before we dive into more zero running back draft strategies and Jamie's comment, I just want to give a shout out to our friends over at GameTime.co. I attend a lot of concerts and shows in Denver, some rock shows, everything like that. And it is so much fun. But I'll tell you right now, what is more difficult is the fact that it's just so hard with these apps. I have such a hard time the day of the show finding, they don't send me the tickets on time. I'm stressed the day of the morning. I still don't have any of the tickets. And I'm trying to pull them up on my case. Hopefully it didn't cut out too badly right there. I saw on my camera. But diving a little bit more into GameTime.co, buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll have. What are some of the things that you'll experience on the Game Time app? Flash deals, last-minute tickets, easy to find buy tickets, images of seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection as well. Going through here, I'm already looking at my Denver, Kansas City tickets, hopefully coming up very shortly here. But you should go check it out today because this is the only place that I'll be buying my tickets from now on in Denver, and there are so many places to go. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 100% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive as well. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. And of course, we have our friends over at Underdog Fantasy as well. August is almost over, and you know what that means. Time is running out for you to draft your fantasy team on Underdog. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out our best ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you have to do is one live snake draft, no waivers, no trades. You set it, forget it, and Underdog does the rest. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania tournament as well. We frequently reference it during the show. Do you have what it takes to win it all? The time is now. The last day to draft your fantasy football team is September 7th. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. And the pick'em call we are doing for week 1 is Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, we're back. And where we were was Jamie's comment. I got Jefferson, St. Brown, Hurts. Then I took Waller over Hawkinson before I took the running backs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good setup right there.
I like that. Getting with some mid-round bully tight end. I don't hate that.
Jamie's always drafting pretty well. It seems like he always gets incredible value in whatever he's doing. And I'll check that out because I'm going to the Browns versus, I think he's talking about gametime.co, our favorite place to buy tickets.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Check that out.
Appreciate you.
All right. Diving into maybe what is the sense of how the years have changed in fantasy football. Used to be a little bit more defensive. Everybody wanted a strong running back. Defense wins championships. As we've transitioned into maybe more of a passing league, it seems like the fantasy landscape has shifted as well. Running backs as I pointed out that it seemed like 9 out of the first 12 first-round picks were running backs just a few years ago. Now it is the opposite. It seems like wide receivers dominate 9 out of 12. It's a flip-flop. Why
1000%.
do you think is it deeper than the fact that the NFL has just switched to a more pass happy league?
It's a more pass happy league, and I just think that because you don't see running backs being used as pure bell cows, you have more split backfields, which therefore creates more value at the position. Because whereas your top tier guys were so limited, now it's a much bigger pool based off of, just a spread in talent. Like, when you look at the Detroit Lions, they have one running back who's in the top 12 in running back rankings. And then they have another who's parked at probably the later RB20 range, probably like RB25 to RB30 in David Montgomery. And the guy in that range is probably going to have more fantasy points. It's just all over the place. You look at a place like Dallas, Tony Pollard could be a bell cow back this year, but one of those other guys is probably going to bleed in whether we like it or not. Saquon Barkley, similar situation. You look at the Bears, that situation with Roschon Johnson isn't great, but because of the opportunity there, and we know that they're going to use multiple backs, we know there's a bubble for value, whether it be a Herbert, Roschon, perhaps even still Donta Foreman if he's not cut. And then, of course, Justin Fields there as well. There's just so many more opportunities at the position, whereas before the belief was you need to draft a guy that's just going to get 300 carries and that's it. That's how you win fantasy. And now it's based off of being able to scoop up the handcuffs at value, the RB2s at value, and really getting nitty gritty with the waiver wire. Like that's what it's going to come down to.
I think that's a lot of it, is the fact that, yes, running backs do get injured a lot more. You can find a productive running back on the waiver wire. We were talking about, I think maybe we were talking, I know I was on my last show, I was discussing how Tyler Algier could be a RB1 if something happened to Bijan Robinson. That's just the fine lines we're dealing with. A running back can be just completely, unstartable to, just one injury away, then all of a sudden plug and play. Yeah. That, that's another reason why maybe they're not getting paid, but, for their fairly compensated, you might say. However, this is what that means. You can count running back injuries are going to happen because that's the nature of the position. So you can find running back value later on, take the chances on some second string running backs. Is there a difference though in how you might approach a zero running back strategy from a best ball, from a redraft, and then from a dynasty maybe perspective? Is you approach it the same way, or do they differ a little bit?
No, it really only differs to me in my actual draft. It just depends on my lobby. If I see everyone playing the ADP game, it's more than likely I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to try to pick up the value in the pieces that they're leaving behind. And that's not to say that, again, I go to the fourth round, receiver, and then I just see a running back there that's fallen, 10, 15 spots after ADP. That's mine. And so maybe I have to call it at that. Okay, I went 3 rounds and I'm calling it in the 4th because, well, I just got really good value here, or whatever. The 5th round, I get, J.K. Dobbins or Javonte Williams falls in my draft a lot because people are concerned with them playing post-injury. Or a Cam Akers, someone like a polarizing name that falls after I've already scooped up, 4 or 5 really good receivers. And it could be likely where I'm just seeing more balance in the 1st and 2nd round. So I'm doing the same things too. And by round 5, I have 2 receivers and I have 2 running backs. I'm not playing it so much based on the format, whereas where I'm looking at the board and I'm reading, okay, you know what? a zero RB approach could really work right here, because I'm seeing how everyone else is actually kind of valuing the running backs a little bit more. And I'm seeing that there's going to be a slippage at the receiver position. That's really where you want to try to target a zero RB approach, is when you're seeing more RBs go in the first round. Like, you traditionally don't see a player like Derrick Henry go in round 1. If you see him go in round 1, you should be taking a wide receiver if you're picking not far after him, because you're getting a little bit more value. It's not like in round 2 when you have a running back moved up into that space. You're probably doing it because the round 1 and the first half of round 2, there were more than average running backs taken. And that situation, I'm not saying, oh no, the running backs, they're flying off the board. I'm saying, hey, give me more receivers, because this is where they are of value. I get it. You'll see some boomer drafters running back in their first 3 picks. But if I'm drafting next to that person, I'm not taking a running back. I'm taking a receiver every time, because I'm getting them at value rather than pulling the position up the board. And that's typically for me how a zero RB draft starts. Like, oh, all's fair. I got Deontay Johnson in the 5th. I got Terry McLaurin in the 6th. Whatever. I'll pay the price in the next couple of rounds here.
That was kind of what I was talking about. That was so interesting. Normally, I don't like to, follow other drafters. I don't like to be dictated by what another man is, or what another draft is doing. Is that a shout out to you, Goon Up? Is that
that would be me?
That's
me
you.
And
okay.
me and John Reed go back many years. Appreciate you, John.
Okay. Well, welcome in, John. Thank you. I couldn't tell. I was just like, what does that mean? I figured that was for you, though.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's interesting in underdog, though, because normally you're right. If I saw wide receivers going early, I might be driven to take a running back early on in a draft, considering that's how a lot of drafts go. But it's such a tidal wave of people taking wide receivers that you almost have to, because that those wide receivers are going to dry up, and then there's going to be some running backs available later. So it almost is like such an overload of wide receivers this year that it drives you to do the same. Before we dive into specific strategies, I just want to give one more shout out to one of our best sponsors over at DraftKings. You've waited all year, and the time has finally arrived. College football is back, and so are the traditions, the tailgates, and the great offers from DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet. I'm looking at my Kansas Jayhawks, and I just can't wait to be betting on them this year. It's been years since I've checked into college football, but my Kansas Jayhawks are back at it, so I'll be certainly checking out DraftKings Sportsbook. Kick off the season with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code SGP. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on any college football bet, only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after insurance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. And of course, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon page, which you should definitely check out. Make sure you check out and sign up for the Patreon to get exclusive contests, including the NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 first place prize. The guys just recorded their first sports gambling podcast stories, going over the birth of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network as well. There's even a Discord channel just for the patrons. The Sports Gambling Podcast has and always will give out their sports picks for free. The Patreon is a great way to support the network and fight back against corporate gambling. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. And of course, if you would not mind giving us a like, subscribe, rating, if you are still listening, it would really mean so much. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you may be listening. With that, we will dive back into zero running back draft strategies here. And I guess the last question before we dive into this here, I just want to ask, is this a strategy that you regularly deploy? And I know it's almost, you have to on Underdog, but when you are with your friends drafting, maybe in your more casual leagues, are you still deploying zero running back?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just based off of the way that the board is falling to me. It has a lot to do with my draft position. So if I'm in a home league and I'm in the corner, like pick 11 or 12, a lot of times I'm going to double tap receiver. And that's also because I've done it a lot. I've did a lot on underdog this summer. So because of that, it gives me kind of an edge to know what running backs are going to be available for me, at what ADP. I'm typical to seeing a lot of names being, kind of polarized, like I mentioned with like some of the injury guys, like, maybe a J.K. Dobbins or Javonte Williams or even a Cam Akers. There's just a lot of guys that I know people will be off of in my home leagues. So I get them at a little bit better value and I chase the receivers early on. But I also feel like in a lot of my home leagues, they're a little bit sharper than some. So they're doing, typically something similar, and it winds up kind of balancing out where I'm not doing maybe as many 0 RB drafts, because I'll wind up taking a running back in like round 3 or 4, but still have the majority of receivers through the first, 5 rounds, taking up my picks.
It really depends for me on the draft, of course. It's been a little bit more. I definitely like to, like I said, be water when it comes to a draft. I never go in with a set strategy. I would never go in with a 0 running back strategy. But if that's what the board dictates, I don't mind selecting 4 tight end or 4 wide receivers, a tight end and a quarterback before I select my first running back.
Yep.
It's a little bit easier to do in best ball, I think. I didn't answer the question myself. It's a little easier to do in best ball, I think, 0 running back draft strategy, because, we're just betting on outlier outcomes. We're going to bank on, Isaiah Pacheco having a great season when we draft him, and that's okay in a best ball GPP tournament. In a little more casual leagues, I do like to select my running backs a little bit earlier on. I don't like to push the envelope at running back quite as much, knowing that I'm going to have to trust these guys week in, week out, as opposed to a best ball league where you can just count on, somebody, a breakout player from your 5 or 6 running backs. With that, though, we are going to, build essentially a best ball team or a 0 running back team. And starting off with, just who are some players that, among we'll go through, you're not going to be selecting any quarterbacks, I don't think, in round 1, but is there a tight end? I'll say tight end in round 1, or wide receivers that you are specifically targeting in round 1. We'll maybe leave out Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, maybe somewhere in those middle.
Yeah, in the middle picks or back end of the first round, I like Tyreek Hill. You can probably get him anywhere from picks 3 to 5, pending your draft. Amon-Ra St. Brown and then Devonta Adams, specifically those last 2 because of the volume. Those are the receivers I truly believe could have 30% plus target share in their offense, and that's really why they're at the top of my list. Other guys that I don't, hate in that space, I'll gladly take them on my roster, are, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb. You and I have discussed Lamb's value at length. So I like those other names in there, but Hill, Adams, and Amon-Ra would be my top 3 targets in the first round. I don't mind, getting some Travis Kelce in the first round, but at the same time, I don't prefer to. I'm taking tight end at value when I can. I want to get a little bit of a stronger target share. I know that Kelsey's going to be a monster in his offense, but he's not a huge threat for downfield production. He's a threat for getting a lot of catches and touchdowns. And I still think that you can make up that, or those stats, I should say, at other positions throughout your early rounds.
Jamie deploying more 0 running back. I drafted in a home league at the 10th spot, got Barkley, AJ Brown, then went Metcalf, Mixon, then Hawkinson, and J.K. Dobbins, and still got Ayuk and Pittman. Yeah, definitely. Nicely balanced roster. It's interesting you said Devonta Adams, because that doesn't seem to be where he's going right now, don't you think? Like, it seems like in a lot of those, you seem like he's going in the second round in a lot of drafts.
He's definitely in the second round, but he's someone that I'm willing to
player.
Yeah, I'm willing to pull the trigger on him at 12 or 13 easily.
Absolutely.
And you could be in a 14-team league where he is a first rounder for sure. Like I think it's hard for him to escape picks 13 and 14, in my opinion. But yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it plenty.
That is very interesting, because I'm looking at a couple of your round 2, your round 2 picks, and I don't think that you see. I love that you're making a stance on these players as well, because I think, DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley, that's an interesting pick there, because DK Metcalf is a player that you do see slip in round 3, but you think these are players they're going to be round 2 picks. We should have looked back and they should have been round 2 picks.
I think it's just kind of up in the air. I see Metcalf and Ridley go in that range of like the last 3 picks of round 2 and the first 3 picks of round 3. So like in that window, I'm looking to kind of double tap them. And that's not, I just like Ridley over some of the guys that he's going around. I can let you know in just 1 second here. So let's see. Ridley I believe
is the one I can't get on board with. I
know
yeah, he's getting steamed up, but
right, him, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins. I like Ridley just a little bit more. I think he's going to bounce back in a big way, and he's going to have a bigger role in his offense than those other two, Devonta Smith and T. Higgins, and then Amari Cooper, Deebo Samuel. So, like, if I'm sitting in a situation where it's Jalen Waddle, Olave, Smith, Ridley, I'll go Ridley right there. I'll bring him up the board a little bit. He's just been looking so good in training camp, and not just like in games, but like in practice. Like he just looks so good running routes. He looks like the Calvin Ridley of old, and an offense that I feel like needs that next level receiving weapon. Like they were good last year. I think Calvin Ridley, really moves the needle for their offense. The Jaguars, other additions as well. Tank Bigsby, we like him a lot too.
Practice is just. It's hard for me. I understand Calvin Ridley's looked very good. He's getting a lot of steam. I think he's certainly going to be a big part of the offense, but it's a long way off. It's hard for me to buy into round 2 hype for me. I think you can probably get DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley in round 3 as well, but I don't disagree on DK Metcalf. I do think he should be a top 24 player when it's all said and done. But Calvin Ridley, you know who tore up Baltimore training camp this year? Laquan Treadwell.
Zay Flowers has been tearing it up, though. I mean, come on now.
Of course, but you know what I mean. It's just practice.
But that's the same. But that's the same thing. Yeah, Laquan Treadwell played well. Jimmy Graham was playing well in preseason.
That's exactly. It's tough. Yeah. It's tough to judge people based on the preseason. I'll have to see it to believe it with Calvin Ridley. Just with him having only one top 16 finish so far in his career, and that being such an outlier campaign with Matt Ryan throwing so many passes that year, Julio Jones getting injured. It's just there's a lot to buy into at that ADP.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a big crutch for Lawrence in that offense, having that second target that can create space, create separation, and make plays after the catch.
Yeah. Okay, I thought once again, I don't know. Like Keenan Allen and Joe Mixon, like you're making strong stances on these players. However, I think once again, you
in round 3.
I think you could push these players back into round 4, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, and again, maybe those are like their ceilings, but any array of players that I've given you from rounds 1 through 5, I'll really take them in whatever order I can get them. That's probably how I would order them, at least as far as I've seen them drafted. Maybe that's just the differentiation of like best ball to redraft.
The savvy drafters are certainly getting Keenan Allen probably early, seeing his dominant stretch when he was on the field last season. What about Joe Mixon though? You're not concerned about kind of the efficiency?
No, absolutely not. And I just don't see Chase Brown or Chris Evans just demanding a huge workload. I think that they'll come in as relief, but not as a role-oriented type of volume on the field. I think that they'll get Mixon his rest. I think that they're going to ride him out this year. I think that that's going to be a big part of their game, especially with Burrow coming back from a minor injury.
Your boy John is in the chat asking about, he's has a fairly standard league settings, it looks like, with a 1 quarterback league. Who would be your top 4 picks in a redraft league, I believe?
The first 4 picks?
Mm-hmm.
If it's 10 team, I think we could get Kelsey in there. I think we could get him at pick 4 if we want to get spicy. But I think the very general, top 4 that you're going to see is going to be Jefferson, Chase, CMC, Tyreek Hill. If you want to get a little bit more flavorful because it's 10 teams, I think Kelsey could warrant that 4th pick.
Hey, did you say Cup and Tyreek Hill?
No, I said CMC and Tyreek Hill.
No, I misheard you. I was just like, I feel like CMC.
I mean, that's just really the start of the game. I mean, that's what the ADP is going to dictate. I don't think you're going to see too many people divert away from that top 4. I think, again, in a 10-team league, I'm willing to put Kelce that high because you can make up for that value. I mean, you're going to find players on the waiver wire that are going to be able to start for you still.
And I'm sure, John, you can see that Jamie would go Justin Jefferson, Chase, CMC, then Eckler or Hill or Kelce. I have my worries about Eckler this year. I've talked about just being so, he's had so many more touchdowns than the next second best running back over the last 2 years. He's had so many more catches, and I think both of those could be in slight danger, but we'll save that. That is certainly not a zero.
Kellen Moore did amazing things with Zeke and Pollard last year. I have to imagine he's got some special stuff cooked up for Eckler.
I think he's got some special stuff cooked up for Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnston too, though. And that's why I think.
What about Josh Palmer? He's looking good.
Hey, I think he has a realistic shot of being the wide receiver 3. So we'll see what happens. And he'll have plenty of moments to be the wide receiver 3 because it's hard to see Keenan Allen and Mike Williams staying healthy throughout the entire year as well. On to round 4, you highlighted DJ Moore and Deontay Johnson. We're a little bit of a broken record with Deontay Johnson. We've been hyping him up at value.
I can't stop.
I'm surprised you didn't throw him into the round 3.
No. I mean, you could, but why would you when he's going to be there in round 4?
But tell me why your boy DJ Moore is going to succeed with Justin Fields this season.
I mean, we've got some great tastes of it. In preseason. He had that burner for 64 receiving yards and a touchdown from a screen. We saw him yesterday make a small little pass up the field, turn into a big gainer. They're just going to use him in this offense. He's going to get 7+ targets a week. And that's just because the team's going to be playing from behind. There's always going to be positive game script to need to pass the ball rather than run. I know everyone says oh yeah, the Bears want to run. They want to run. Well, the Bears are going to be playing from behind. Their defense is not amazing. We have some good linebackers, a building an upcoming defensive line, and a very less than average secondary. This defense is going to give up a lot of opportunity for the offense, and it makes it a great situation for fantasy. I see all of their passing weapons at value. I mean, other than Justin Fields, I mean, he's pretty immense when it comes to value. He's probably going somewhere in the 4th or 5th round now. He's shooting up the board. Really not that far off of Lamar Jackson and his ADP value. But other than that, I love the receiving weapons here. So, definitely makes, Darnell Mooney a nice little late round wide receiver target if you do, need to come back around from your 0 RB strategy and get a nice little late round target. So, yeah, it's a good situation there.
I'm very high on Deontay Johnson too, because I expect Kenny Pickett I expect this Pittsburgh offense to be a lot better. We saw them have a very nice performance against the Buffalo Bills, very encouraging. The offensive line will be improved. DJ Moore will certainly be reliant on Justin Fields, but however, he should certainly command a very high target share. So maybe those low volume passing, 30% target share can fix a low volume passing offense. On to round 5. Hopefully, you've established a strong base of wide receivers up to your 0 running back draft strategy at this point. But before we pivot to start drafting the running backs, who are your final few wide receiver targets in that round 5 range of 2023 fantasy football drafts?
Still like Terry McLaurin a lot. Give me a little bit of a dip with him with the toe turf. Jahan Dotson in that same offense. He's just a ball dominator, a guy that can make plays through traffic, through contact. George Pickens, same thing. If you're missing on Deontay Johnson, take a swing with George Pickens. Just don't take Pickens ahead of Deontay. It's just counterintuitive, in my opinion. You're not playing the ADP game, and Deontay's still going to have a larger target share of the offense. But both those guys, Dotson and Pickens, big-time playmakers, playing through contact, playing at the high point of the ball. And then I still really like Chris Godwin at his ADP. He's a huge value right now. Still someone I think could potentially come back with 85+ receptions this year in an offense that's going to be playing from behind. They're a bad team. Yeah, they may not play well in the first half of games. You may see literally Chris Godwin have 2 catches for 8 yards in his first half, but you're going to see him go off in a lot of second half games because this team's bad. They stink. They got a bad quarterback. And I could actually see even Kyle Trask coming in at some point and throwing on the hero cape and turning, things around for the receivers or just the offense in general. If things are muttering, if we're not seeing production out of these guys, whether the team's losing games, They're not putting up enough yards. The offense is just sputtering in general. I could see them just going with a different hand at QB other than Baker if things aren't working out. And regardless, bad QB, bad offense, give me the lower ADOT guy. Give me the guy that's going to soak up, just a lot of targets. That's Chris Godwin.
I like Chris Godwin a lot too, especially at that wide receiver 31 ADP or wide receiver 30 ADP, where you see him generally going to receive a lot of targets. I don't expect the offense to be the same as was with Tom Brady, but there were some mitigating circumstances that made, even with Tom Brady, a little bit more of a stagnant offense. The offensive line should be a lot better. And hopefully we have a breakout. This actually leads perfectly into our now, after round 5, we're going to begin to start selecting those running backs, those guys who, have a chance to be that RB1 a little bit later on in drafts. And I highlighted Rachaad White. Yes, I am doubling down, even with all. I like it even more with all this Sean Tucker news. I think a lot of these headlines can be much ado about nothing at the end. Splitting some first team reps in practice. However, let's say this is absolutely true. Sean Tucker is going to be getting first team reps in games. I think that was always going to be the case. What running back?
Who else do they have?
What was that?
I mean, who else do they have? They didn't sign anybody. It doesn't seem like they're going to grab Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette. So yeah, it's going to be Keyshawn Vaughn or Sean Tucker. Yeah, exactly. But he's not going to be the number one.
Yeah. Rachaad White is still the number one, and it was never going to be 25 touch per game Rachaad White. That was never going to be the case. So, Sean Tucker, somebody was going to have to take some carries from Rachaad White, get probably 10 carries a game or so, something like that. That's just the realistic how running backfields work now. I still think Rachaad White can return on value, especially now that his ADP is probably dropping even a little bit lower now with the Sean Tucker news. I think that really is a non-story more than anything. And so, you're probably not as high on mine, but where does Rachaad White fall in your running back rankings?
I am. Rachaad White is one of my breakout running backs for this year. He was in my breakout running back article. I had to defend him against Justin Herzig and Andrew Robb, my co-host on my last show. He is one of my running back heroes this year based on his ADP. In the last draft that I did for best ball, he went in round 8. He was butt-ended by Dalvin Cook and Khalil Herbert, who we'll talk about here shortly. But round 8 for a running back that I know will get running back 1 touches for his roster. He had 50 catches last year on this roster with, Tom Brady and Leonard Fournette, but that was as a backup. I have to imagine he can exceed at least 55 receptions this year playing as the RB1 with a growing quarterback situation, whether it be Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. Again, give me those lower ADOT guys. Give me Rachaad White. Give me Chris Godwin and Kate Otten as well. Those are the guys that I want to target. I like Mike Evans. He's another receiver. Like if you really want to lay into 0 RB, he's a guy you can get in round 6 or 7. On top of the behemoth of wide receivers that you've already drafted, you could throw him on there as well. I don't see the need to, because I still feel like he'll be less utilized in this offense that's going to throw the ball at shorter yardage, at lower ADOT, and those will be the guys that clean up. And, if you want to get Mike Evans for some splash weeks or have a sexy-looking flex player, by all means, go ahead. But I think it'll landmine you a few weeks, that's for sure.
Who is your first running back to target later in drafts? Maybe one slightly earlier on, maybe more in this kind of round 5 to 7 or 8 range.
I'll give you a round 6 running back, and I'll say Dameon Pierce, still going at an immense value. I also have Devin Singletary on my list. He goes much later. I just like the situation because DeMeco Ryans is going to want to utilize multiple running backs. I see Devin Singletary, actually having a pretty solid role on this offense. But Dameon Pierce is going to have the most volume. He's going to be used as that weapon to protect the passing game. I know the offensive line is going through some issues right now, stacking up some injuries, not looking good in training camp, not looking good in preseason games. I'm trusting they'll figure it out. And when in doubt, bad offensive line, just run the ball forward. Just dive up the middle. Just let, Dame Pierce go and make a play. But still a running back after round 5 that I believe can get up to 20 touches per game. So Dame Pierce would be that guy, but also like Devin Singletary in that lineup. a lot of explosiveness out of that backfield. That's going to need a little bit of a punch every now and again. That's going to need somebody to move the chains or to get that 4 or 5 yard passing play for a nice, easy completion on a young upcoming quarterback in CJ Stroud.
Are you worried at all? Maybe the offense is kind of in that really bad situation where they're going to be, not very good in general, so there's not going to be a lot of plays. And then when they are on the field, they're going to be playing from behind. Does that worry you at all?
Again, that's kind of why I need to reference Devin Singletary, because that's where he steps in, right? So again, if you're not getting Dameon Pierce, a running back, I still believe, again, at round 6 or more, and you're getting someone that I feel very safe will be pushing 17 or 18 touches a week, I still think that's very good value. And the little bit that we saw of him as a rookie, he was amazing. The per touch efficiency was there. The speed, the power, like he more than passes the eye test. I agree with you. You're getting him at a discount because the situation with the Houston Texans is not good. They are not a team that you trust to be in the red zone a lot. What you're attacking here is the volume that he'll provide to you, and that volume is backed by a very good skill set in Dameon Pierce. I also just have to reference Devin Singletary because he is my most exposed player on Underdog and Best Ball Mania. Through 135 drafts, I've got 15 left to go. He is my most exposed player, Devin Singletary. So I have a lot of faith in him because of what you just highlighted. The situation is not great, and I do expect there to be a role for that secondary running back, in an offense that's going to be bad. They're going to need to use that guy to rest Dame Pierce as well as play from behind, play catch up, get those explosive plays closer to the line of scrimmage that I was talking about, those easy completions for an upcoming Stroud.
It's interesting. Dameon Pierce is the classic player I would have avoided in years past because just the historical profile, mid-round running back, successful initial first campaign. It always feels like they were going to be overdrafted going into their second year. However, it seems like the fantasy community is becoming a lot more jaded, like myself. He's still floating around that round 6 ADP, which I think is a reasonable price tag. I think, if he was flirting and, I think maybe years ago he would have gone around 3 and I would have said that was too pricey.
Who would you rather take right now? Alexander Madison in the 5th or Dame Pierce in the 6th?
I would. Well, I was just debating whether I would rather have Dameon Pierce straight up. I would definitely rather have Dameon Pierce at ADP over Alexander Madison in the 5th. But I would probably just rather have Dameon Pierce in general over Alexander Madison, even in the better offensive situation that Alexander Madison's in.
What about Breece Hall at his cost? Breece Hall going in around round 4.
Breece Hall. I got to take the talent. I know it stings right now. It's hard to see, but Dalvin Cook has barely stayed alive these last couple seasons. At the end, I think the end could be any day now for Dalvin Cook. Never Madison.
Hey, just watch it, all right? Watch it, pal, with the Dalvin Cook slander, okay, pal? Just chill out. Why you got to go there? Who's your next guy?
Are you a Dalvin Cook fan?
Absolutely. Dalvin Cook is fantastic.
I'm trying to figure this out. He's a Minnesota Viking. Why do you like him?
I like Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot, too. I'm a Bears fan.
Interesting. Okay.
He's on my teams, man. He's on my teams. I draft him on my teams.
You're a complex Bears fan. That's okay. That's all right.
I have a lot of Aaron Rodgers.
Just hate the Packers. You just hate the Packers. That's all.
I have a lot of Aaron Rodgers this year. I'll tell you that.
My next player,
QB 16.
I still like Jared. I still like the guys going behind him, David, Geno Smith. And Jared Goff. But I know you do. You don't even
Smith
need to tell me about
Smith is going ahead of him now, but Goff is just one spot behind him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take Goff, but I know you'll take Goff. The one guy you might like more than even Aaron Rodgers, but we don't have a whole show to go into Jared Goff. I do like. Good.
Lost you. Audio's gone. I don't know what happened to Emerson.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
We made a pretty strong run, actually.
That was a long run.
About 47 minutes since our last audio break.
The AI was like, "Hey, move it along."
I haven't seen anybody complain about my audio in the chat too, which is good. I haven't heard anybody say we can't understand this guy, so that's a positive. So
instead, the Spotify and Apple users just get to listen to us just yell at each other.
Hopefully that's not the case. But David Montgomery, I think, is set play behind the best offensive line he's played behind in his entire
1000%.
career. Lots of rushing attempts, especially with a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs, who's probably not slated to get more than 10, 15 rush attempts per game. This is a role that Jamal Williams excelled in last season. David Montgomery is a much better running back than Jamal Williams. Do you have anything to shed on your former running back?
Yeah, love David Montgomery still too. A lot of exposure to him for this year. There's about 360 plus vacated rushing attempts, 2,300 plus rushing vacated yards, 22 plus rushing touchdowns vacated. There's just so much opportunity for David Montgomery, someone that's also going to be used in the passing game. I know that everyone wants to assume like, oh, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's got this Alvin Kamara style, the type of build, and he's going to get used like CMC. I believe those things too, but look out for David Montgomery. Like, he'll be used in a multitude of ways. He'll catch the ball. He's a good downhill runner. He'll probably be their red zone running back. I mean, let's just face it. He's a bigger, bulkier guy. Gibbs does have more of that slimmer frame, more like a receiver, more like an Alvin Kamara, like I said. But I think that they're set up for like a thunder and lightning type of combination this year. David Montgomery, though, is the better value per ADP. Jahmyr Gibbs a month ago was going at like running back anywhere from like 14 to 16. Now he's all the way up to running back 11 or 12. That's a bit expensive now. Don't get me wrong. In the right situation, if he falls, I'll pay the price. Like, even if he's, gets like a backup to like that RB16, as long as I can get a couple of receivers ahead of him, I'll pay that price. But I'd still also probably want to back it up with someone around David Montgomery and his ADP as well, just because you're not going to see Jahmyr Gibbs get the bulk of the carries. You're going to see him get a lot of touches, but you're not going to see him get the bulk of the carries or the rushing touchdowns for the Lions offense.
Okay. I do see up next. Oh, we'll just shout out John Reed.
That's it. If you can see the comment, I guess the Spotify and Apple listeners can't see it. David Montgomery could be the Jamal Williams this year. Yeah, I mean, that's an echoing sentiment, throughout the fantasy community. Oh, look what Jamal Williams did. David Montgomery, always kind of a better player, better prospect than Jamal Williams. Got to imagine he can do some good there, even if it's not Jamal Williams' production. Go ahead. I let it run. I could see you were frozen.
Yeah, I was hoping I'd come back here. The internet's definitely yelling at me. Hopefully the sound.
Pay your MediaCom bill, Emerson. Jesus.
I guess we had a strong run, but so we'll get into these last few quick here. I see you have a couple running backs kind of in that top 30 range. You want to break them down really quick. There are two running backs that I definitely see a lot of upside to, especially the one in the AFC East.
James Cook.
Yes.
Yeah, James Cook's also a guy that's got a ton of steam right now. Someone that was going in the mid running back 30s a month ago. Now I believe he's all the way up to like RB 24 or 25. So he's a little bit more expensive. Let's see. In the last draft I did, I believe he went earlier. Where are you, Mr. Cook? He went in round 7. I've seen him go closer to rounds 9 and round 10 in the previous months. So he's caught a lot of steam. But just the fact that the Bills aren't going to add anybody, there were some small rumors they might add Dalvin Cook or a free agent running back. It's all wheels up with James Cook and Dame Harris. You're going to see a lot of James Cook in between the 20s and probably going to see a lot more of Dame Harris inside the 10, but you're still going to have James Cook playing in an offense that's going to be one of the top scoring teams in the NFL. It's just a huge opportunity and a vacuum opportunity for points. Like, he won't have as many rushing touchdowns as, say, Dameon Harris, but he will have just as many yards, more catches, and he's going to be a huge focal point, again, in just one of the better offenses in the league. Running back for the Eagles that doesn't have competition for touches. That's what James Cook is in the Bills offense.
James Cook, one of the more efficient runners in the NFL last year, great athlete, fantastic breakaway run rate, juke rate. Yep. Yards per touch, it's all fantastic on the metrics for James Cook. A very good pure rusher, just not a big-bodied guy who's capable of taking 10 or 15, or capable of taking 20 rush attempts. You wouldn't do that to James Cook. However, I do think he can be hyper efficient on the touches that he does get. Certainly, top 20 range is
5.7 yards per carry as a rookie.
Yeah, one of the best in the NFL. Face green smiling. What does that mean?
Like
These
an
are a lot of
emoji, I'm
inside
guessing.
jokes. It's a lot of
No, no,
inside
no, no,
jokes.
no. We wouldn't do that to you. We wouldn't let you feel left out like that.
Jamie, I would take Madison at the RB30 range, so I guess it's not never Madison. Yeah, I mean, it's always, you don't hate the player, you hate the ADP.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Madison
if you see
spots lower.
if you see Madison fall 10 or 12 spots, there's an argument to take him, but I don't like doing it.
Last one I will shout out before I go to you for your final two. I'm going to give my man Kenny Gainwell. I still think, it's back and forth. It's never going to be just Kenny Gainwell's backfield. Okay. That's certainly true, but Kenny Gainwell still getting the most first team reps in practice. Very successful run through the playoffs last year, playing co-starting slightly ahead of on the depth chart, whatever you want to call it, with two of the most injury-prone running backs in the NFL in Rachaad Penny and DeAndre Swift. I think Kenny Gainwell, his ADP hasn't gotten too steamed up, still going in the RB4 territory. So I still think that's tremendous value.
I have a little pushback there. I just feel like he's not going to be a big threat for anybody in fantasy because they're going to split the backfield so well. And this is a team that really doesn't care about training camp. They don't care about preseason. They're literally just going through the reps and doing like positional analysis, essentially. Like they're literally just going through the motions and saying, okay, even in preseason, like they don't care about winning games. You can see it from just the way that they call plays. They just try to attack everything on a very situational basis. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of Gainwells, because he's honestly the guy that they care about the least. Like DeAndre Swift, Rachaad Penny, they don't want those guys getting hurt, whether it be practice, preseason. I think it's more of a competition between Kenny Gainwell and like Trey Sermon. Like Trey Sermon's looked amazing. He's looked a lot better than Gainwell in preseason. That's for sure. He scored a bevy of touchdowns. He's looked great in practice. I just feel like they're using more Gainwell in this preseason and training camp period to lessen the opportunity for injuries, because they've seen like that's what you need to make a run. Like they had one of the least injured offenses last year and one of the deepest offenses. Yeah, they missed Hurts for a little bit, but he was ready to go for playoffs. Same thing for Dallas Goedert. Yeah, he missed a little bit of time, but he was ready to go for playoffs. And they believe that's predicated off how they've attacked staying away from injuries as an organization. So I just don't like it because there is still a huge vacuum for opportunity for those other guys. And he's in round 12. Like, I think he's just appropriately priced. If you want to take a shot on him, great. But I feel like in regular redraft leagues, you're never going to know when to start him. In round 12, I can also get Dame Harris, another guy that doesn't have as many mouths to compete with to be fed in his offense, right? Like it's him and James Cook. They're going in the same round. Raheem Mostert, kind of a similar situation. Roschon Johnson, the situation is getting a little bit better, but he's a guy that went after him. Devin Singletary, round 14, 2 rounds later, again, a situation I like a little bit more because it's just him and Dameon Pierce. There's not going to be many other competitors for touches or targets there.
I'll go both ways with you here. I saw Kenny Gainwell, if we don't want to talk about the preseason and training camp, I did see Kenny Gainwell outsnap Miles Sanders in the playoffs and take a very large role in the playoffs last year. But going toward, the preseason as well here, I'm looking at it. Kenny Gainwell did not play in the first preseason game. It was DeAndre Swift and Rachaad Penny. And then Kenny Gainwell did play in the second one, which Trey got like one carry, I think. Trey Sermon certainly had more opportunities, and Trey Sermon had 16 carries for 30 yards didn't have a great week 3, but then Kenny Gainwell really, like, I think to your point, Kenny Gainwell really didn't play very much in the preseason either. Now maybe you can make a point about practice, limiting in practice, but I don't know. That seems a lot. I don't know. So I like Kenny Gainwell. I think he could. This will certainly be a committee, but I'll take the last guy in it because I still think that he could be the most productive because he's going last in ADP. So certainly I think an argument to be made for ADP. But with that, with my internet waning, where are we going with your final 2 picks?
Khalil Herbert and Isaiah Pacheco. Running backs both going at value. Khalil Herbert in round 8. Isaiah Pacheco, I believe maybe a round before that. Yeah, Isaiah Pacheco round 7, Khalil Herbert round 8. that's appropriate value for me. I'd like to get either of those guys as maybe my second or my third running back still, and I think that's very doable. Still going like receiver through the first 5 rounds. You could get one of those guys as your second or potentially even your third running back, just depending on your draft position. And I think they're just all, or both of them, are in good positions to score fantasy points this year. Khalil Herbert being discounted because people are uncertain who's going to be like the actual lead running back there. Could Fields steal a lot of production? I just feel like there's a lot of question marks, and people just also trust the Bears offense less. But I think it's a good situation because you are still getting a running back 1 at value, and he'll still probably will, even this season, lead the running backs in total touches. So getting that value in round 8 sounds good to me, sounds fair. Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know why he's going so late. I really don't. He is the running back 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't see why there is so much disbelief in him. I feel like this is an immense value going in round 7, a pick that I feel like should go probably in round 4 or 5. Because he's tied to one of the best offenses in the league. Who's his big competition for touches here? Is Prince really going to take away like some sort of Lions share? I don't think so. Is Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to just rebirth himself? Is he going to resurrect? I don't think so. Jerick McKinnon, I like him a lot, but he's more of a pass catcher, and they don't have like great pass catching weapons. I don't see him taking away the lion's share of carries or rushing touchdowns. Still a very great situation for Pacheco, and you're getting it at a great discount because of those factors I just rolled through.
Yeah, he's going at a fine ADP. I wouldn't steam him. I don't know about round 4 or 5, because I kind of agree with kind of the consensus that he, even though he is the RB1 in a powerful offense, we've seen how that is these last couple of years with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Just not, I think. If there was a super talented guy back there, I think the offense would change a bit, but it's certainly not something they've leaned on. Isaiah Pacheco, I still think, low-end RB2 value is probably where he's going to sit a lot of the year, but that's a value in where you're talking about in drafts. I guess some of the uncertainty comes with the injuries that he's suffered. But I'll tell you, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to be taking any of that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had fought to make the team. He barely made it. So, Clyde Edwards-Helaire not a threat unless Pacheco got injured or something like that. But with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for bearing with me through the internet, everybody. I appreciate it. Justin, you have anything to shout out over at SGPN this week?
Pay your bills, Emerson. Pay your bills.
Yeah, I had to talk to the guy just to get the dial-up connection for this podcast, but
unreal.
We'll get the bills paid for next week.
Get that Elon internet, that Starlink internet, that good shit.
Thank you, Jamie, for the shout out. I appreciate that. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your short weekend, I guess I should say. Just a few hours left, and have a great Monday morning as well. Thank you so much, and we will see you again very soon on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network.
Later.